1st of September at the Bats in the Pyrenees Mountains, which divide southern France from northern Spain. Many people have traveled to drink the curative waters or bath in the health-giving muds of various pools and springs, seeking relief from various ailments. After 3 weeks at these resorts, the travelers sought to return to their homes in Spain and France. But just then, it began raining so heavily that it seemed that another deluge was coming. The rain fell so heavily that some feared that God had forgotten a promise he made to Noah not to flood the world again. As a result of the rains, bridges were washed away and roads became impassable. Small streams turned into raging torrents, and many people were swept to their deaths. Amid this chaos, the elderly widow Wlit sought shelter at the Abbey of Our Lady of Serens in the valley of Aspe. The lady arrived at the abbey safely, but most of her servants and horses perished on the way. Wlit was later joined by other lost travelers, which she met Hircan and his wife Parlamante. And the other widow Longarine and young gentleman was called the Guchin. And the other Sephridan also, the two ladies Nomerfide and Enasweet. Hircan discovered their companions named Geberon. The company testified extreme joy at hearing the names of the good Mademoiselle and the gentle Knight Simontault, and everyone praised God for having saved the master and mistress after the loss of the servants. After taking a little rest, towards morning they went to hear Mass and receive the holy sacrament of union, by means of which all Christians are united as one, and to beg of God, who had reassembled them through his goodness, the grace to complete their journey for his glory. The workmen, however, having declared that it would take at least 10 or 12 days to construct the bridge, the company began to grow tired. Parlamante, the wife of Hircan, always active and never melancholy, having asked her husband's permission to speak, said to old Mademoiselle,
I am surprised, madame, that you who have so much experience that you fill the place of a mother to the rest of us women. Do not devise some amusement to mitigate the annoyance we shall suffer from so long a delay. For unless we have something agreeable and virtuous to occupy us, we are in danger of falling sick.
What is still worse, we shall grow cross, which is an incurable malady, the more so as there is not one of us, but has cause to be extremely sad, considering our several losses.
Everyone has not lost her husband like you. To have lost servants is not a matter to break one's heart about, since they can easily be replaced. However, I am decidedly of opinion that we should pass the time away as agreeably as we can.
As soon as the morning broke, they all went to the chamber of Mademoiselle, whom they found already at prayers. She read to them for a good hour, after which they heard Mass, and at 10 o'clock they went to dinner. Everyone then retired to his own chamber and attended to what he had to do. At noon all were punctually assembled in the meadow, which was so beautiful and agreeable that it would need a boccaccio to depict all of its charms. Enough for us to say that there never was its like. The company being seated on a green turf so soft and delicate that no one had need of floor or carpet.
Which of us shall have the demand over the rest?
Since you have been the first to speak, it is right you should have the command. For in sport, all are equals.
God knows, I could desire nothing better in the world than to command such a company.
Parlamante, who knew very well what that meant, began to cough, so that Hircan did not perceive she had changed color, and told Simontault to begin his tale, for all were ready to hear him, the same request being urged by the whole company.
I have been so ill requited for my long services. Ladies, that's to revenge myself on love and on the fair one who treats me with so much cruelty. I am about to make a collection of misdeeds done by women to men, in the whole of which I will relate nothing but the simple truth.
The first day of the Heptameron recounts stories of the ill turns and dirty tricks done by women to men and by men to women in the first tale of the first day. The pitiful history of a proctor of Alencon named Saint Aignan and of his wife, who caused her husband to assassinate her lover, the son of the lieutenant general.
As agreeable as you say, you can't be afraid of the devil who put you into it.
It seems to me, ladies, that the last speaker has cast such a slur upon our sex by the true story he has narrated of a wretched woman, that I must run back through all the past years of my life in order to call to my mind one woman whose virtues was such as to believe that bad opinion he has of our sex. Happily, I recollect one such woman who deserves not to be forgotten, and will not relate her story to you.
The ladies were so touched by the sad and glorious death of the muleteer's wife that there was not one of them but shed tears, and promised herself that she would strive to follow such an example should fortune expose her to a similar trial. At last, Mademoiselle, seeing they were losing time in praising the dead woman, said to Saffredent,
If you do not say something to make the company laugh, no one will forgive me for the fault I have committed in making them weep.
Saffredent, who was really desirous to say something good and agreeable to the company, and especially to one of the ladies, replied that his honor was not due to him, and that there were others who were older and more capable than himself who ought to speak before him.
But since you will have it so, the best thing I can do is to dispatch the matter at once, for the better speakers precede me. The more difficult will my task be when my turn comes.
He should have killed the old one, and the young one, seeing herself alone, would have vanquished.
Killed! He would turn a lover into a murderer. It would be a terrible thing to fall into your hands. I see.
Upon my conscience, if my wife had done the same thing, I should not esteem her the less, provided I knew nothing about it. I don't know if someone has not played as good a trick at my expense, but fortunately, as I know nothing, I give myself no concern.
Those who are interested in the matter were to speak the truth. We should certainly hear of servant maids dismissed before their time.
This is pleasant, truly. You promised to make the company laugh, and instead of that you vex this gentleman.
As I have given you an authentic instance of virtuous love on the part of gentleman, which continued to his last gasp. If you, madam, know any story that is to the honor of some lady, I beg you will be good enough to finish the day by relating it. Never mind the length, for there is time enough to say many good things.
Hereupon everybody rose, and proceeding to the abbey, they found that the monks had been waiting for them for more than an hour. After vespers, they supped. The evening was not passed without discussing the tales that had been told in the day, and reviewing in memory the means of making the next day pass as agreeably as the first. After no end of sports in the meadow, everyone went to bed highly gratified by the way in which their first day had been spent. In the morning they rose early, eager to return to the spot where they had so much pleasure. Everyone had his tale ready and was impatient to bring it forth. After having heard Mademoiselle's reading and attended Mass, dinner was the next affair, during which they also recalled to mind many a story. After dinner, they went to rest in their chambers, and at appointed hour every one repaired to the meadow, where it seemed that the weather and the day expressly favored their design. After they were all seated on the verdant couches prepared by nature's own hands.
Ladies, this story have been neither long nor melancholy, and that you have had from me what you expected.
Ladies, pray, do not put yourselves in a passion about things that is past and gone. Only take care that your beauties do not occasion murders crueler than that which I have related.
Why? Is there any greater virtue than to love in the way God ordained? To me, it seems much better to love a woman as a woman than to make her one's idol, as many do. For my part, I am convinced that it is better to use than to abuse.
A sea captain, being gently in love with a lady, sent her a diamond, but she despised it with his wife, whom he had long neglected. And this is wise, so atoned for his conduct, that this wife was reconciled to him in perfect attentions.
You may say what you please of women, but Boniface's conduct was anything but that of a man of honor. If a woman loves a man, is that any reason why another should have her by treaty?
Holy Mary, how you talk! Is that the way to win the good grace of the lady who is believed to chaste and modest?
Say what you will, I doubt that you would admit any excuse for her.
While he was speaking, Parliamente put on her half-mask and went with the rest into the church, where they found that although the bell had been rung for vespers, there were no monks to say them. The fathers had been apprised of the agreeable manner in which the company spent their time in the meadow, and being fonder of pleasure than of their prayers, they had gone and crouched down there in a ditch behind a very thick hedge, and had listened to the tales with so much attention that they had not heard the vesper bell. The consequences was that they come running in with such haste that they were quite out of breath when they should have begun vespers. After service, some of the company inquiring of them why they had come in so late and chanted so badly, they confessed the cause, and for the future they were allowed to listen behind the hedge, and to sit at their ease. The supper was a merry one, and during it were uttered such things as any of the company had forgotten to deliver in the meadow. These filed up the rest of the evening, until Bozal begged them to retire that they might prepare for the morrow, saying that an hour before midnight was better than 3 after it. Thereupon they sought their respective chambers, and so ended the second day. The company assembled in the refectory. They found Mademoiselle already there. She had been meditating for half an hour on what she was to read to them, and so intent were they on listening to her that they did not hear the bell, and a monk had to come and tell them that High Mass was about to begin. After hearing Mass and dining soberly, in order to have their memories clearer, they all retired to their chambers to review their several repertories of tales previously to the next meeting in the meadow. Those who had some droll story to tell were already so merry that one could not look in their faces without being prepared beforehand for a hearty laugh. When all were seated, they asked Saffredent to whom he addressed his call.
We have pledged ourselves so strongly to speak the truth that I could not undertake the task. Besides, your table reminded me of a piteous one, which I must relate to you, as I come from the neighborhood of the country where the thing occurred in my own time. I choose this story of recent date, ladies, in order that the hypocrisy of those who believe themselves more religious than others may not so beguile you as to make your faith quit the right path and induce you to hope for salvation in any other than Him, who will have no companion in the work of your creation and redemption. He alone is almighty to save us in eternity and to comfort us in His life and deliver us out of all our afflictions. You know that Satan often assumes that appearance of an angel of light, in order that the eye, deceived by the semblance of sanctity and devotion, may attach itself to the things it ought so shun.
Thought I guessed pretty well who is the hero of his tale. I cannot help saying that he is to be praised for having kept the secret, for there are few great lords who give themselves any concern either about the honor of women or public scandal, provided they have their pleasure frequently, even their act in such a manner as to make people believe more than the truth.
I confess, I should be glad if my pleasures were as pleasing to God as they are to me. In that case, I would often give matter for rejoicing.
Courtiers and inhabitants of great cities have such a good opinion of their own capacity that they regard others as very small folks in comparison with themselves. True craft and cunning are all conscious in all conditions, yet at those who think themselves the sweetest do so only vanity. They are only the more laughed at when they happen to make some mistake, as I shall instance to you in an affair of recent occurrence.
Upon this, the whole company rose and went to the church, where they devoutly heard vespers. At supper, they talked over the conversation of the day and many things which had occurred in the time, each citing what he thought most worthy of recollection. After a cheerful evening, they retired to their beds, in the hope of resuming next day a pastime which was so agreeable to them. Thus ended the third day. After dinner, everyone retired to study his part, and at the appointed hour they all repaired punctually to the usual rendezvous. Wuzil asked Hirkan who should begin the day.
This is much as to say that I am rather given to evil speaking. I shall nevertheless let you see that people who have been regarded in the same light have yet spoken the truth. I believe, ladies, you are not so simple as to put faith in everything a person tells you. However, sanctified an air he may assume unless the proof is clear beyond doubt. Many an abuse is committed under the guise of a miracle. Therefore, I intend to relate to you a story not less honorable to a religious prince than shameful to a weak minister of the church. Do let us consider, I beg you, what a course our conversation has taken. From an instance of extreme folly, we have come to philosophy and theology. Let us leave this matter to those who are competent to discuss them, and ask Normified to whom she gives her voice. I take it in that very sense, and I say that two men who commit a fault, he who is very amorous is more pardonable than the other who is not so. For when who loves reason is not easily mistressed. If we could speak truly, we must own there is not one of us but sometime or other experienced that furious madness, and yet hopes for grace. Let us say then, that true love is the ladder by which to ascend to the perfect love which we owe God. No one can ascend to it but through the affliction and calamities of this world, and through the love of his neighbor, to whom he ought to wish as much good to himself. This is the true bond of protection. For as St. John says, how you can love God whom you do not see, unless you love your neighbor who do you see.
You give me great pleasure, for I have a story which is worthy to follow yours. Since we are upon the praise of virtuous patience in ladies, I will tell you one of whose conduct was still more laudable than hers of whom you have just heard, and was the more commendable as she was a city lady, a class who are usually less trained to virtue than others.
The reason is that in order to preserve the public tranquility, regard is only had to the degree of the families, the age of the persons, and the laws, men's love and virtue being counted as nothing, in order not to confound the monarchy. Thence it comes that in the marriages which take place between equals, in accordance with the judgment of men and of relations, the persons are often so different in heart, temperament, and disposition, that instead of entering into the engagement which leads to salvation, they throw themselves into the confines of hell.
Their conversation was so interesting that bedtime arrived before they were aware of it. Mademoiselle was the first to perceive that it was time to retire, and her example was followed by the rest. All went to bed in the gayest humor, and I do not think the married couple slept more than the others, but spent a part of the night in talking over their affections in times past, and giving each other evidences of its present existence. Thus, the night passed agreeably away. When morning was come, the Lady Wazelle made ready for them a spiritual breakfast of such excellent flavor that it sufficed to strengthen both body and mind. The whole company was very attentive to it. It seemed to them that they had never hearkened to a sermon with such profit before. Having rested for a time after dinner, they returned to their accustomed diversion. When all were seated in the meadow, they asked Parlamente to whom she gave her vote.
Be assured that those who read it constantly and with humility will never be led into error by deceits or human inventions. For whosoever has a mind filled with truth cannot believe a lie.
Yet I promise you that for my own part I shall never essay so great and difficult task. For if I but render you content my day will not have been ill spent.
Whatever the poor lady may have done, I nevertheless cannot praise the men who boasted of their imprisonment.
By her advice, the whole company then rose and went to hear vespers, not forgetting in their fervent prayers the souls of those true lovers, for whom also the monks of their charity said de profundis. As long as the supper lasted, there was no talk save of the Lady de Verger, and then, when they had spent a little time together, they withdrew to their several apartments and so brought to an end the seventh day. Cruelty of the Duke of Urbino, who, contrary to the promise he had given to the Duchess, hanged a poor lady that had consented to convey letters to his son's sweetheart, the sister of the Abbot of Fars, by Mademoiselle.
I believe it for those who bind together in marriage are well so able to tie the knot, that not but death can destroy it. Theologians, moreover, hold that spirit language is more effective than any other, and in consequence, spiritual love surpasses any other kind.
I pray you, Dagusin, intermeddle not with our Holy Mother Church. Be assured that this is a great delight for timorous and secret-loving women to sin with those who can absolve them, for there are some who are more ashamed to confess a thing than to do it.
They all rose and came to the church, where they found the monks awaiting them. Then after hearing vespers, they all supped together. Talking the while of many excellent stories, after supper they went according to their wont to disport themselves somewhat in the meadow, and then retired to rest, in order that their memories might be the sounder on the morrow. On the seventh day of the Heptameron, the storytellers recount stories of those who have acted quite contrary to their duty or desire, and the first tale of the seventh day. Great kindness of a husband who consent to take back his wife twice over, in spite of her wanton love for a canon of autumn, by Saffredent.
We appeal from the sentence, or did we believe the ladies to be without love? We would fain be ourselves without life. I speak of those who live but to win love, and even they secure it not. Yet the hope of sustains them and prompts them to do 1,000 honorable deeds, until old age changes their fair sufferings to other pains. But did we think the ladies were without love? It was needful we should turn traders instead of soldiers, and instead of winning fame, think only of heaping riches.
You would say, then, that were there no women, we should all be dastards, as though we had no courage save such as they put into us. But I am quite the opposite opinion, and hold that nothing weakens a man's courage so much as to consort with women or love them too much. For this reason, the Jews would not suffer a man go to the war within a year after his marriage, lest love for his wife should draw him back from the dangers that he ought to seek.
As long as supper lasted, there was no talk save of the Lady de Vergier, and then, when they had spent a little time together, they withdrew to their several apartments, and so brought to an end the seventh day. When morning was come, they inquired whether their bridge was being well advanced and found that it might be finished in 2 or 3 days. These were not welcome tidings to some among the company, for they would gladly have had work last a longer time, so as to prolong the happiness that they enjoy in this pleasant mode of life. When all were seated, the question was put, who should begin?
You did me the honor to have me begin on 2 days. Methinks we should act wrongly towards the ladies if one of them did not also begin on 2.
It were then needful either that we should continue here for a great while, or else that a gentleman and a lady of the company should forego the beginning of a day.
For my part, had I been chosen, I would have given my place to supper then.
To this all agreed, and Parliament thus begun.
This, the day that passed has been filled with many tales of wisdom that I could beg you to fill this one of the greatest. Foolish that we cannot remember. So, to tell the way, I will begin.
On the 8th day, the narrators tell of the greatest yet truest follies that each can remember, and the first tale of the 8th day. The wife of a saddler of Ambuise is saved on her deathbed through a fit of anger at seeing her husband fondle a servant maid by Parlamente. And the second tale of the 8th day, kindness of the Duchess of Alenton to a poor nun whom she met at Lyons on her way to Rome, there to confess to the Pope how a monk had wronged her and to obtain his holiness pardon by the Guchin.